This is Buzzalong Cycling, the podcast that brings you into the world of cycling, ultra cycling, and bikepacking. I'm your host, Sherry. Today's episode is brought to you by Buzzalong Coffee. More info in the show notes and description. Today's guest is a very special one. 6-time winner of Race Across America, 24 hours record holder, and 2 times winner of the Transcontinental Race, Christoph Strasser. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sherry. I'm very happy to be your guest today. And I'm really excited to talk about TCR and all the other stuff with you.
That's amazing. Actually, we met during Transcontinental Race this year and we had a chat after the race, but I feel there's a lot of things I want to ask you. Well, the first thing is like you used to do supported races and now you switch to unsupported races. How do you feel is the experience, how different it is, and why you decided to make this change?
Yeah, I think the change is not permanent, so maybe I will do races with my support crew again in the future. I don't know, but I was doing Race Across America 9 times and Race Around Austria I did 5 times, and I had really a lot of races with my support crew, and it was always a really great experience because you can share your emotions, you can like be a big team, and if you have problems you can help each other, and it's really like the team spirit is really great. But when I did a lot of Race Across America participations, someday I was thinking about why not try unsupported, just to see if it's really different, how I can do a race without my crew. I was just curious about how it feels to be out there completely alone, because a lot of people always talk about what is more exciting, what is maybe harder, what is maybe easier. Maybe supported racing is, people think it's easier maybe because you have your crew and they help you all the time with nutrition and navigation and fixing the bike if you have a problem. And other people say supported racing is maybe more tough because you have more miles per day, more kilometers per day. You don't have so much rest, you sleep less. So I was like, okay, I want to find out what is the difference. So I decided to try the Transcontinental Race because I think it's the most well-known unsupported race here in Europe. It's really exciting because you cross the whole continent, you see different culture, different landscapes, and I've never been in Southeast Europe with the bike before, so this is why I chose the Transcontinental.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that seems like it's a kind of looking for adventure, I would say. The unknown. I saw during your first attempt to Transcontinental Race that you had a very steep learning curve. What do you think were the biggest takeaways from the previous edition to this one? This one was more challenging, I believe, for you because there was a lot of gravel and climbing. But the other one seems like there were some struggles there.
Yes, definitely. I think TCR number 8 last year in 2022, it was definitely longer. It was a greater distance, but it was also not so mountainous like this year. This year was much more climbing and steeper mountains. And of course, the roads were not so good this year. Much more gravel and even the parcours, the mandatory parts of the route were very demanding. And last year was my very first unsupported race ever. And I really tried to prepare as good as possible. I was listening to all the podcasts I could find. I was reading blogs, I was reading books, I was talking to people with unsupported experience to find out what is really the most important thing in preparation. Because I knew that my physical fitness is very good, so I was not worried about my legs, but of course I was worried about all the different things like sleep management, nutrition, route planning, and equipment, which things are important to take with you, and some things maybe you can leave at home. And of course, the technique with the dynamo and the lights and charging your phone and charging the Garmin. There was so much things to do, so many things to do. and I was really very busy. I was like, yeah, planning and preparing and exercising for a month. And then in the race, of course, yeah, I was really struggling in the beginning. Um, in the first night when I wanted to go to sleep, I was making a booking for a guest house, and then suddenly I became much too tired. I got so tired on the bike, and I just couldn't make it anymore until the guest house, and then I lost my way. It began to rain. The Garmin was wet. The telephone was dead because of the water, so I couldn't do the navigation anymore. I was riding like up and down and not to the guest house, and I was really completely desperate. I think I lost more than 1 hour. All the other people were riding by, and I was just going in any direction, but not in the right direction. And yeah, this was like one thing, and I forgot some small parts to when I was trying to repair my tube when I had a flat tire. I had just my small pump in the frame,
Yeah.
but it took me so long to get air into the tire. And then when I put away the pump, the small part from the valve came out, so the air was gone. I needed to do it again and again and again. And then I forgot the small piece which you can use when you go to a gas station for the car tires. You can
Yeah.
put on the tube and also use it for bike tires. And I didn't have this with me, so it took me very long to find a place where I can like put enough pressure into my tire again. And then yeah, I didn't have cash with me, only the card, and in one shop in Italy when I had to buy a new tube, it was like 30 minutes. I lost time because there were some people in front of me, and they were talking, and they were so slow, and I was really nervous, and I said, hey, please, I'm in a race, please hurry up, I need to go.
I
And
know
nobody
that
was
feeling.
caring. And so if you have cash, you just put 5 euros or 10 euros, and then you go. Yeah, and there were a lot of struggles, but this year it actually was much better. So last year, like in the second half of the race, it was really going well, and this year it was going well from the start of the race.
Yeah, yeah, I see. Like I was following your dot actually during the race. I was telling my partner as we were riding as a pair, let's follow Strasser. If he made it, we can make it too. So when we had no clue where to go, we were following your dot. I guess being at the front of the race is a bit more stressful in this regard. When you are farther from the front in the race, you always have the option to follow other riders in case of doubts, or you see some images from their Instagram updates of how the parcours look like. But I guess at the front of the race, the pressure and the rush for the competition is like something completely different, right?
Yes, I think so. But actually, you and Garion, I think you did not follow my dot very often because your route choice were much different than mine. You were going for the off-road, for the shortcut, and I was always taking the long way to avoid the gravel.
Yeah, in Eastern Europe we started to follow you.
Okay.
In the Swiss Alps we went for Gampele. We were like, he's the local, so let's try to follow Gampele. But when we went for the hike bike, that didn't planned out. So don't take hike bike shortcuts. That's my advice. Great idea on paper, but most of the times that I did it, it never paid off. So
Yeah, I am always looking for the safer option. Maybe not for the shortest one, but more for the safest one. Because even I think when you make a decision, maybe you take a shortcut with the gravel or you take a detour on the good roads. Maybe you are a little bit faster on the shortcuts, but you can also get problems because of that. You can like damage your tires, you can like get lost, you can like have a crash, and I don't know, there is maybe nothing to eat and drink there. And so I think for me, because I like flat roads, I'm very strong in flat roads. I'm not so strong in the mountains. So if there is a flat detour, for me, it's always the better choice.
And for those who are not very familiar with the Transcontinental Race, so you have to create your own route and you are self-supported, and depending on your route is the length. For example, some people do an extra 200 kilometers, or some people go more for the shortcuts, but it's a beautiful way to discover the continent, and probably the toughest race across Europe, I think, because not only physically, but also what you were saying, the logistics. So everything you have to take care is it's not just riding your bike, but sometimes I feel it's more like about your logistics, your preparation. And also, I feel like with every ultra race, it gets easier. So maybe it's also about experience.
I think definitely, yes, it's about experience. And the question you had before when you are in the front of the race, I think last year I really had no expectations. I just wanted to survive the race and make it to the finish line. And I was really starting very carefully, and I was trying to sleep enough. So I was sleeping 3 hours every night. And in a race across America, it's just about 50 minutes every night or something like this. And the people in the front last year, there was a very strong field of racers. They had just a power nap in the first few nights, and I was like in 10th place or in 9th place on checkpoint 1. And when you're not in the lead, in my experience, I had nothing to lose. I had really nothing to lose. It was absolutely stress-free. And then when I came closer to the leaders, and I was in 3rd position on checkpoint 3, and then I was leading in checkpoint 4. And when you're in the lead, suddenly you think, oh, I don't want to lose my leading position. So you really, it's a bit of more pressure. And I also think you make the pressure yourself in your mind, because, to be honest, there is no pressure at all. So just give your best and try your best and take care, and then you will see what is the outcome. But when you're like in a race for several days, your mind goes a little bit crazy, and
Yes.
and then when you think before the race, there is no pressure. It's just about the adventure. But when you're in the race for a lot of days, then your mind, thinks different, like before the race.
Yeah, I found that sometimes when you realize you have a chance to, compete, sometimes you start kind of stressing yourself, and it's when you make mistakes. I made that mistakes in TCR. Everything was going according to plan. We were following our strategy. Then we got excited to gain positions, and then we started making mistakes and lost even more time. If we will have followed our strategy. So I think, trying to take it more relaxed and just stick to your strategy, no matter what the other ones do, I think sometimes is the best way to go. Exactly. And a lot of people ask me, can you prepare for an ultra race? And actually, the last year I found that yes, you can actually prepare and train for these kind of races. I'm wondering, what is your training and preparation in comparison, for example, to RAAM? Is it very different, the way you approach your training?
It's very similar, because the race across America is also a similar distance. It's 4,800 kilometers long, and it's like for the physical fitness, it's about the same. So the training is not so different. It's about, I'm doing 25 hours to 30 hours riding the bike per week. And a few years ago, I even did more, because I was training a lot of endurance rides, and I was thinking, if the race is very long, your training must be very long. But then I started to work together with a coach. And of course, I think coaches are thinking different from riders, because they have all the scientific stuff, and then they have so much knowledge. And then my training got a little bit shorter, not so long rides anymore, not so many long rides, and more intensity, more interval training. And when I was like beginning with ultra cycling, sometimes I did 40 hours training per week, and now it's just 25 to 30 sometimes, but with higher intensity, because when you have your basic endurance, then it's about getting faster, because if you want to be really fast in a race, you also need to increase your your performance and not only your endurance. And this is just the physical part. And then you need to train your nutrition. You need to try all the things that you will probably eat during the race. Because if you have like the perfect nutrition in training every day, and then in an unsupported race, you just have the gas station and supermarkets and chocolate bars and all that stuff, then maybe your stomach gets problems and you're not used to it. So it's really important to use the same fuel in the training, which you will actually use in the race afterwards. So
Yeah.
this is I think some people underestimate the importance of nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I actually learned from your podcast, and I applied in my last race when you said like you don't go on the 7 day croissant diet as some other riders, that you tend to focus even during the races in quality sports nutrition. And I applied that in my last race, and I really saw the change. Like I had constant power. I didn't have such a like huge dips of sleeps. So if you can get quality nutrition during the races, that's really good. Instead of I mean, of course, it's impossible to avoid the gas station food, but at least to try to make better choices, I will say, because it really pays off.
Yeah, as long as you have the possibility to get high quality food, you should take it. And I'm also thinking about equipment and how many things you take with you. I prefer not the lightweight equipment, but I have a little bit more stuff with me, especially high quality food. So I have my electrolytes drinking powder, and I also make some kind of syrup. You know, a lot of electrolyte powder and a little bit of water. It's really thick, and I have 4 bottles on my bike, and one bike, 2 bottles at the start were full with my electrolyte syrup, and I could use it for the first 3 days. So I had high quality nutrition for 3 days. Just add water, like when you find a gas station, or just some water in the mountains or anywhere. Water is not such a big problem. And then you can mix it and you have a really high quality drink. And I also eat a lot of just plain bread. I think it's better than chocolate and all the junk food. And you can buy plain bread in all the bakeries and in most of the small shops, and there is not so much chemicals in there.
Exactly. For
And
example, I took that approach of taking for the last race, Bohemian Border Bash, like 25 gels, and it lasted 2 days, and I felt great. And then I was like, oh, now I have to resupply again. What do I do? But found a bike shop and bought another 25 gels, and I never felt so good in a race before. So definitely something to look at. And I also think keeping on top of your energy levels is key. So not letting your energy levels drop, because you cannot really recover in this kind of races from this.
That's true. And to recover, I also experienced that protein is very important, because when you're out there on the road, you will not have a lot of protein in your nutrition. And what I did, I had some BCAA caps with me. This is just a small luggage. It's not so heavy and not so big, but it really helped me a lot. I took some of these caps every day, and when on the road, I also tried to get some nutrition, some food with protein. Like sometimes I had tuna or something like this. So because if you have no protein at all, or not enough, then your muscles will suffer a lot, and then you will slow down. And it's about avoiding too little protein. I think that's really important.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm wondering, how did you manage sleeping and sleep deprivation? Did you sleep outside in hotels? And I also heard in your podcast that you did a caffeine diet. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. I did, I think it was 6 weeks before the race, I stopped to drink coffee. And normally I really like to have espresso. But before the race, I stopped. And then I was really like feeling very good during the race when like I had no espresso during the race, but I had some cans of Coke, one a day. And when I got up in the morning, sometimes I had a caffeine gel, and sometimes I had a Coke. And this was the only Coke for the whole day, just one can in the morning. And last year I was drinking Coke like liters and liters and liters every day. And this is not so good because then you have no effect from the caffeine anymore. And yeah, and because of that, I also had really very good sleep tactics. It was really working well. I was sleeping 3 hours and sometimes 2.5 hours. So it's much, much more than in the Race Across America, but it's actually not really much. I think it was a very good strategy for me. And last year I was sleeping outside for 6 nights, and I had a room for 4 nights. So like one time in a room and one time outside. And I think sleeping outside you're very flexible. You can stop anytime. When you really get tired, you can stop and put your sleeping bag and find a place. But on the other hand, I think getting up in the morning is really a bad experience because you are tired, you are cold, you are wet, you are so slow. I think in the last 2 nights last year, it took me 1 hour from waking up until I was sitting on the bike again, because putting the sleeping bag into the saddle bag and getting the clothes and I was so slow and so sleep deprived and tired. I was really much faster this year because I was using rooms every day. I did not plan, but because there was so much rain in the first 3 days and I didn't want to sleep outside when it's wet and when it's cold and when we are in the mountains. So I was going for a room in the first 3 nights, and then I also had some saddle sores. And I thought to myself, maybe it's better to stay with the room strategy, with the guest house strategy, because you can take a shower, it's more hygienic for the saddle sores. And finally, I was using rooms every day. And even if it's not so romantic, I mean, sometimes people think the self-supported racing spirit is about sleeping outside all the time, but I'm sure that it's more efficient when you are sleeping in a room, because in the morning you get up, you take your jersey, and then you go. You're really fast, and you're not cold and you're not wet. You're just ready to go as soon as you get up.
Yeah, I found the same. The recovery was much better. I was sleeping in hotels and rooms every night until we got excited and we started sleeping outside to make up time. And then I developed saddle sores because I was not taking a shower and it was so hot and my clothes got so dirty that I didn't have any issues until that point. And then I started sleeping outside and then I developed saddle sores, and then I kind of regretted it. I was like, I should have stuck with my strategy and ended up sleeping in places infested with mosquitoes in the carpet of a church. So maybe it's not as romantic in this regard when you actually do it. But there's a different approach. But I agree. In my case, I also find there's better recovery doing that, like sleeping in a comfortable bed, being more efficient when you actually get up. And I heard there were some funny stories when you show up to some of these rooms, right?
Yeah, one time it was in Albania. I was checking the Booking.com app during the day. I'm always trying to find a room, so in the afternoon before it's getting dark, because when it's like 7 in the afternoon, 7 p.m., okay, I will ride for 5 or 6 more hours until midnight, and then you can make a calculation how many kilometers you can go, and then you try to find a room there. And I was finding a room. Everything was fine. I was making the booking. And when I arrived there, a man was coming out and he said, he's very sorry because everything is full. He has no free bed anymore. It was a mistake in the software. But he actually has one bed left, but it's his own personal sleeping room. And then I was sharing the room with his wife and with the owner of the guest house. And it was really a little bit strange because, in Albania, 70% of the people are Muslim. And I was not sure how do they like when there is a naked man, because I was taking a shower and then I just had the towel and I was going to the bedroom and the man and his wife were sleeping there, and I was really a little bit ashamed because I thought hopefully it's no problem because I have no no pants, just the towel. But everything was fine. And 3 hours later, the man was greeting me in the morning. He was helping me and opening the door, and then I was leaving, and everything was fine. But it was a very funny moment.
Yes, indeed. So many funny stories that happens there, or so many things you thought you will never do, right?
Yes, true.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm wondering, what was your favorite part of the race, your favorite country, and how it does compare from the previous edition? You think you enjoyed the route more this year or the previous year?
I think the route was more beautiful this year, I'm sure, because we had really a lot of mountains in the Alps. Last year it was only like 2 big mountains in the Alps, and this year I think it was 7 big mountain passes in Switzerland and Italy, and it was really beautiful. And then afterwards I was riding through Bosnia. I did not choose the coast but the inland, and I have done the Be Hard race in Bosnia in spring, so I knew some of the places and I really liked it a lot. Because there are not a lot of people, not a lot of tourists. The roads are sometimes very empty, and you have the rough landscapes and the rivers and the valleys, and then Montenegro is also very beautiful, and especially Albania, because Albania is such a remote country sometimes when you're not on the coast but in the inland. There are a lot of people with farms and no cars on the road because people don't have cars there a lot. A lot of people are walking or like using the horses, and you have like just untouched landscape. I was really loving it, and I was really enjoying it so much that I didn't complain about the bad roads because the roads were not so good, but because of the beautiful landscape, I was still enjoying that part very much.
Yeah, it's funny how different is the experience from rider to rider. I completely agree. I absolutely love Montenegro. Like we were descending on this endless downhill on the sunrise, and it was like the country opening up, so beautiful.
Yes.
And Slovenia, like actually somewhere I really want to go back. It was wow, beautiful. But Albania, I must say, is not a country I'm keen to go back. So it was like the bumpy roads and probably that treacherous gravel parkour.
And
But actually, some riders enjoyed it.
yes, and
You know, the
now
gravel
it's
grinders.
yeah, and now it's September. It's like 2 months after the race, and 2 months later, sometimes you forget about the painful things, and you forget about when you have been angry and really like desperate, and it was really tough when I was there in the race. But now, a few weeks later, you just remember the beautiful stuff and the beautiful stories, and I think this is very good to like talk about it. But when you think back, you just remember the beautiful parts of the road and of the race.
Yeah, exactly. I really enjoy your stories of the final parkour about like when you rode. Oh no, for the last gravel part, and I was thinking, oh, you see, even the top guys complained about that. I could really relate to it because sometimes I thought it's like I might be the only one that is walking.
No,
Yeah.
it was the final parkour. I was really completely destroyed because I was, I think it was 5 or 6 hours in front of Robin. He was in the second place, and we have been like really close and matching each other until the halfway point. And then in the second half, I was getting some hours I was ahead of him, and I had really no problems with sleep deprivation. So even if I just slept 2.5 or 3 hours, during the day I was very clear and focused, and it was really working well. Last year I needed to take some power naps during the day because sleeping outside and the bad recovery. And this year when I entered like the last night of the race, I was really feeling strong, and I was sure that I can make the last night without sleeping. So I just had one small power nap. I tried to have one power nap. I could not sleep because there were so many insects and mosquitoes. So I get up and ride on. But 1 hour later, I found a safer place. There was like a house building construction site with empty rooms. I was just finding a spot to sleep. And 20 minutes later, I was entering the finish parkour, and it was in the middle of the night. It was dark. And when you ride very slow, the dynamo light is not really working, and my battery lights, it was empty after 5 minutes. I don't know. I had a problem. I think when I had it in my bag, it was turning on.
Yeah.
It was a mistake, and then the battery got empty. So yeah, I had bad lights, and I had a crash, and I was really afraid that I can lose the race, or that I have to like scratch there. And then when there was a section, I had to push the bike uphill a little bit, and then I realized that I've lost my tracker. The tracker was gone because I had it on the stem.
Yeah.
And then I just saw, oh my God, the tracker is not here. And I was thinking, okay, I just have a flat tire. I need to stop. I have no lights. How should I change the tube without lights? It was dirty. It was a little bit wet, and my tracker was lost. So it was just a catastrophe. And then I had the idea, okay, when I checked the website, the Follow My Challenge website, where my dot is on the website, this must be the place where my tracker is.
Yeah.
So I had 2 mobile phones with me. This was very, very good because last year my phone was dead, so I had a problem. And this year I had a second phone. So I had one phone with Google Maps with my actual position, and on the second phone I had the live tracking with my tracker position. And when I compared these two, I was finding the way back, I got my tracker, and yeah, somehow I managed to change the tube. But then afterwards I was walking all the way. I did not want to ride on because I was so afraid of crashing and of damaging my last tube. And it took me a lot of hours to get there. And yeah, and even in the very last climbs, when you just see the finish over there, and it's Thessaloniki, and you think, yes, I have achieved it. I have done it. It's just an easy ride to the finish line. And then you have like, I think 20% uphills and downhills all the time. Yeah. And then I was pushing my bike again, and yeah.
Yeah, I had the same. You feel you are there. It's like, oh yeah, it's just rolling into the city, and then they put these walls there. Actually, Garion told me, oh yes, put it to the back and go down the hill. I was like, I'm not going down the hill. That I think it was one of the few that did that.
Did you also push the bike downhill?
Yes, I also pushed.
Yes, I did the same. I
was like, I'm not going to lose the race in the last kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, when I finished the race, I thought, I need to finish this race because I never want to do this again. And a day after, I was already thinking, maybe I would like to do it again. I don't know if you had the same feeling, going back to TCR for a third time?
Yes. I have the same feeling, but I know that directly after the race is not a good time to think about next year. I think it's just enjoy what you have achieved and take a rest and talk to the other people and have good food, and just hopefully you can be proud of yourself and what you have achieved. And then a few weeks later, it's maybe a good time to think about maybe next time or not next time. But I really like the time when you have made it to the finish, because you meet so many people, and all the people are really great personalities, and you hear all the stories, and you can exchange your experiences, and it's really a great time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You hear all the funny stories. I also really enjoy watching, reading the articles, and listening to the TCR podcast. The funny stories, like this guy that rode in a poncho because he had saddle sores. I was like, oh my god, that's determination.
Yeah.
I think in ultra cycling, yes, there is the physical element, of course, and fitness, but it's a lot about your willpower and how much you want it, right? So you have people pushing for weeks even after the event finished to make it to the finish line.
Yes, it is really a lot of willpower and a lot of mental strength and your mindset. But I think it's really a big difference when you're doing supported races, because you are sleeping less. Your mind goes even more crazy. But on the other hand, you have your support crew, and you can talk to them. And every time when you have like a mental problem, when you have motivational problems, when you have a crisis, you have your friends and your team with you, and they can really help you. It's like when you have a bad time and you can talk to your best friend, it's really helping you a lot. And in unsupported racing, you need to sleep more, because otherwise it gets really dangerous. And when you're not so tired, I didn't have so big problems in my head because I was not that tired. But of course, when you have problems, you are completely alone. Nobody's there to help you. Nobody can listen to your story when you need to talk to someone. And this is really stressful sometimes. I can remember one situation. It was last year. It was in Montenegro in the Durmitor National Park. And I was there. It was like 1 o'clock in the night. It was completely dark. There was no moon and no stars, and there was no white lines on the road, and no road signs, nothing. So everything was just black, and it was dark and cold and windy, and I didn't know where I am. And I was always like turning around, and I thought, oh, I need to talk to my crew. Then I stopped the bike, I turned around, and then I realized there is no crew. Nobody is here. I'm completely alone. The only thing is just the Garmin and the line I have to follow. And this was really a really bad experience. But yeah, this is part of unsupported racing. You have to manage your mental problems just alone.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the risk you take, I guess, because I notice, for example, when I do solo races, at the beginning I was like not willing to take as much risk. But for example, when I did burst racing with Gerion, I knew if something will happen to me, he will come back. Yeah, so I think having somebody to speak in the tough moments really makes a difference. I guess that's why I prefer to race the long events or the real adventures with him. It's quite fun to be able to share it, or you have somebody to kind of like, if you to blame, is like, you decided to take this road.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's like, I'm so bad. Why did I do that?
And I think sometimes it's just helpful when you have someone to have a fun conversation or to make jokes, just talk about anything. It helps you to stay in a good spirit and to stay awake. And yeah, and when you have a problem, you can blame him. And but
Yeah,
this
indeed.
is why I'm really missing my team sometimes, but I also enjoy the adventure and the achievement when you are like really manage to make it to the finish and to handle all the problems. It's really a nice feeling when you're out there alone, and sometimes it's really just beautiful when you have a sunrise in the morning and you're just there. It's quiet. You can just enjoy the scenery and enjoy yourself. It's a very special experience to be there alone.
Yeah, exactly. There's always these times in ultra racings, right? You have like the worst time ever. You think, oh my God, what am I doing this? And then the most beautiful sunrise on sunset, and you think, oh, that's why.
That's
exactly.
why.
It's a roller coaster of emotions. And if you had one advice for somebody looking to toe the line to TCR one day, what would it be?
My advice is to be patient in the preparation and in the race, because I think if you really want to be doing this quite fast, you need to build up a physical fitness and get some experience. I mean, some people are really like fast learners, and you can get like a good fitness level in just a short time. But I think being patient and training a little bit more, and maybe just take 1 or 2 more years to prepare on a long term, it gives you like more trust in yourself. And because just in my case, I really know that I can trust my body. I know that my fitness is strong enough, and I don't need to have sorrows about my fitness. And if you have like sorrows about your fitness, I think it's really stressful. So my advice is to take enough time to prepare. There is no rush. The race will also be next year, so it's sometimes 1 year more preparation. And then also in the race, you will not win the race in the first 2 days, but you can lose it in the first 2 days. So sleep enough, eat enough, take it easy in the beginning, and then in the final days of the race, if you still feel strong, then you can increase your speed and make like a sprint finish, but don't do a sprint start. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very wise words, Christoph. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It's been a pleasure to have you in the podcast, and looking forward maybe to see you in another event.
Yeah, and what about next year, TCR maybe?
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but never say never.
Never say never, exactly. Oh, the good thing is different every year, right? So you have different checkpoints, so there's a new adventure.
Yes, different checkpoints, and I just heard something special should happen next year, so I'm really curious to find out. But there are even a lot of other beautiful races, so there is enough things to ride and enough things to explore.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
And if you are looking to improve your nutrition and glucose levels, we will have a podcast about this topic coming up. So don't miss it. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, review the show. And on YouTube, give thumbs up. Thank you. Until the next one.